Hey Regicide, this is the story of Stone Soup. I first heard this when I was in kindergarten and we actually made Stone Soup. Stone Soup is a soup where everybody brings one ingredient and it all gets put in a pot and all gets cooked together. And we actually have done this at work once. There was a potluck at work, and it was before payday, and everyone was like, "Well, I want to participate, but I can't afford to bring anything." And Lolly said, "Hey, we'll do stone soup." And so stone soup can be made very inexpensively because it's like, okay, what is a can of beans? A can of beans is 50 cents, or a can of carrots, whatever, 50 cents, $1 maybe. So you can have some things that go in which are a little bit more expensive, but the rest of it can be just incredibly cheap stuff. And stone soup is essentially a soup of mixed stuff that's sort of a communal thing. The story comes from the time of the French Revolution, late 1700s, early 1800s. Soldiers were marching from a place to place. There was a group of 3 soldiers. And they stopped by a village and they were hungry in need of food. And the villagers were like, "We have no food." And the reason why the villagers were saying we have no food was because they knew if they had any food whatsoever, the soldiers would just take it. So everyone was like, "We have no food." Everyone starving to death. We have no food, but they probably did have some. So the soldiers were like, "Okay, since you're all starving and we're hungry, we're going to make stone soup." The villagers are like, "Stone soup?" And the soldiers are like, "Yeah." So lend us a cauldron. So they got a big kettle, big, huge kettle, big enough to feed the whole town. Type of thing used for washing. Took down by the creek, built a fire around it, filled it up with water, went into the creek and got out 3 big stones like this, head-sized stones. Put them in. Started heating up the water and cooking it. And the soldiers would take a taste. Not bad. Needs a little work. Needs a little bit of something. And the villagers were just gathering around and they were like, "That's okay, come on, we'll feed you. We'll feed the whole town." And the soldier takes a sip. It's like, it could use a little bit of salt. Stone soup's pretty good, but this could use a little bit of salt. And one of the villagers goes, "I might have a little bit of salt." And he goes back to his house and comes back with a little bit of salt and sprinkles it in. The soldier says, "That's pretty good." It's like, it could use a carrot. Someone goes, "I think I have a carrot. I think I can find a carrot in the garden." So he runs off, comes back with a few carrots, and they chop it up in the soup. Soldiers take a taste. It's like, it's getting there. It could really use a potato. So the villagers run off. One gets a potato. And this goes on, and it's like a little bit of beef, a little bit of carrot, a little bit of corn, turnip, parsley. Need some parsley. So eventually the villagers go, and they bring back all of this stuff, enough to make the whole soup. And the soldiers are like, "This is pretty good." And they hand it out to everybody, and everyone eats the soup. And the soup, it's essentially vegetable soup. Beef vegetable soup, beef barley soup, whatever went into it, because it's soup, and you just put stuff into the pot. And everyone was like, "Oh, this is so good." And just from stones, the soldiers were like, "You're welcome. Keep the stones." And see, that's the beauty of stone soup. It's this sort of collaborative thing where everyone gets together and makes something, and it doesn't take much from anybody to make a lot for everybody. As I said, your Lolly suggested we do it at work one time, and we did. And there were people who didn't know the story of stone soup. But I mean, as I said, I did this in kindergarten. So, this is something that, you can, that your friends will know about, or you can tell your friends about, that, this is how you can get together and make something incredible. So GoFundMe is an example of Patreon. That type of thing is where people get together and do something big, with just little bits and pieces. Um, but Stone Soup can be great. Um, you have to be careful with the right type of stones because you don't want stones that have heavy metals in them. So you want something that's like a sedimentary stone.